Hi, this is Charlie Zeiss with Stargate Pyramids. I wanted to do this video today for several reasons. The coronavirus is obviously in the news, and I am very concerned about not only its origins, but more importantly for humanity, ways to stop this. I was asked by Richard Hoagland late last week to join him on a special broadcast that he did Saturday night on the coronavirus. The main guest of the evening was Sharry Edwards, who's doing some really fantastic work in sound healing. And I would suggest that all of you who have a chance go to the other side of midnight and watch that, or you can also see her in a more abbreviated video that Sarah Westall did just this last week. But I was, because of technical difficulties and so much information, I really wasn't able to get all of the data out on that show about the Russian pyramid research regarding viruses that I had wanted to. So I wanted to take this chance to do that today. Essentially, what I'm going to talk about today is sort of a compare and contrast approach to the research that Sharry does, that other pioneering researchers have done. Stephen Lewis, for example, with his AIM program, where he targets a whole bunch of different frequencies. But the idea being there are numerous people who are doing frequency-based research and approaches, but I wanted to contrast that with what I believe is the healing modality of the Russian pyramid, and that is beyond a lot of the time that we have today. But I'm going to open up the slide presentation this morning, and I want to read you a synopsis from Dr. Golod on the pyramids.ru website that I think will help to encapsulate this differential in concept. So essentially, this is a summary. This is on my on my website page, stargatepyramids.com. Just go to the summary of the Russian pyramid research. But this quotation goes as follows. It says, "The field structure of any object, be it a mineral, a solution, cellular tissue, or a living creature, undergoes major changes in the area of impact of the pyramid. And these structures, as it were, become ordered, become the most optimal and harmonious. And in this zone, ordinary thought forms, simple wishes become part of our field structure, which increases the probability of events initiated in the pyramid field by this thought form or wish by many orders of magnitude. The power and strength of field structures ordered in this way increases dramatically if all of their newly acquired components are in resonance with the shape of the pyramids, in our case, with the state of harmony." Now, when I first started reading that, I didn't quite have I didn't have a good understanding of what Dr. Golod was truly striving at, but I think I've started to understand from our own research on EMFs, and I'll just digress here for a moment. EMFs are there are over 7,000 articles that indicate that EMF exposure is a major contributor to chronic disease, which is the cause of 99% of the costs of Medicare healthcare issues in the United States. So we have proven independently through our own research that that electromagnetic pollution is eliminated by the existence of the pyramid. And in fact, now that I understand that in greater detail, I feel as though what's happening in this summary is that those frequencies which affect all of the cellular DNA in our body that is truly not our own. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, for example, has said that 90-something% of our DNA is not our own, but that all of this microbial DNA is far more sensitive to issues like EMFs. And therefore, I feel that by ordering the field, which is what this pyramid does, it has the impact of dramatically increasing the immune function of the human body, as we're going to see in the following slides. So I'm going to start here with perhaps the most on-point part of the research from the Russian pyramid research. And again, this can be found on stargatepyramids.com on my summary of the Russian pyramid research. But essentially, in this case, the geometry of the pyramids promoted heightened immunity. And the methodology used in these experiments, mice were kept in a pyramid in various numbers and for varying periods of time. After several days, the mice were infected with 4 increasing doses of Salmonella typhimurium, which is a virus which results in symptoms similar to typhoid fever in mice. The control group was supplied with mice from the same strain and was contaminated with the same doses of culture, but without exposure to the pyramid. So that's the methodology. Now let's look at the results, which are just amazing. The results are the survival rate of mice who received exposure to the pyramid considerably exceeded those in the control group. At smaller doses of contamination, 60% of the mice exposed to the pyramid survived versus 7% in the control group, an increase of almost 10 times that of the control group. And in the larger doses of contamination, although only 30% of the mice exposed to the pyramid field survived, only 3% of those in the control group survived. So what we have here is a virus, a very virulent virus that's been put into these experimental mice. Those mice that were housed inside the pyramid had a 10 times greater survival rate than those in the control group. I mean, this is just an amazing conclusion. So what they conclude, exposure of mice to the pyramid field essentially promotes the heightening of their resistance to consequent contamination of Salmonella typhimurium. Therefore, it is possible to speak about a very powerful immuno-enhancing influence of the pyramid. So this is research that I only had a chance to talk about so briefly Saturday night, but I wanted to do a separate video to get this out to the public. Now, here's another piece of research which seems to talk to the method of action or the reason why this occurs. Lymphocytes, from the research that I've read, are an extremely important part of the immune system, and the proliferation and the longevity of the lymphocytes seems to be important in the immune function, as we will see. So the goal of this study was to determine whether exposure to Russian geometry pyramid fields had impacts on lymphocytes. The methodology was a study of the effects of the pyramid field on human lymphoblast cells. In the experimental group, water placed inside the pyramid was used to prepare a solution of the nutrient growth medium, whereas in the control group, water that had not been exposed to the pyramid was used. Cell viability was determined by staining cells with trypan blue and MTT, and was analyzed using spectrophotometry of the absorption of the dye. Now, the results were that by day 10, a noticeable increase in the number of cells and the percentage of cell viability in the treated exposure compared to the control group was experienced or observed. On day 11, these values were respectively 1.2 million total cells and 52% viability for the control group. And here, what that means by viability, 52% of those cells were still alive. And that was in the control group. But in the group treated with the pyramid water, we had 1.4 million cells that had grown. So the number of cells that had been produced had increased. But most importantly, the viability, or the percentage that were still alive, jumps to 88%, or 1.23 million of those cells. So essentially, after day 11, we've got twice as many cells that are still remaining alive, and we have about a 20% increase in the number of cells remaining, of lymphocytes. On day 21, these values were 0.05 million and 2% viability, or 1,000 cells in the control group, versus 0.3 million total cells and a 49% viability that still remained for the experiment. So in other words, at the end of 21 days, there were 147,000 cells that were still alive versus only 1,000 that were alive in the control group. A huge difference. And apparently, and this is outside of my area of expertise, but the longevity of the cells of lymphocytes apparently is extremely important in the continuing immune system function of the human organism. So we've got two classic and very potent examples here of the importance of the pyramid in producing immune function. And here's a final one. People may ask, well, do you have to be in the pyramid itself? This is points us in the right direction in terms of public health, because the pyramid reduces cancer and infectious diseases over a broad distance. Now, in this example, we're just talking about using granite and quartz that were actually placed under the pyramid, but there are other experiments that are done that are in the sparse literature that does exist that indicate that this is true when you build a pyramid, obviously, and put it into the public domain. So since the end of 1997, circular contours of pieces of granite and quartz exposed in the pyramid began to be laid around Moscow and the Moscow region. And by the beginning of 1999, about 40 such rings were laid, and each of the rings contains 50 to 300 stones. But the bottom line is what's important here: the number of reported cases of cancer, infectious diseases, etc., decreased. Now, because of suppression in the West, we don't have the statistical data regarding this study, but it conforms with all of the other research that is in the public domain about cutting down respiratory infections and other types of communicable and infectious diseases by placing the pyramid directly in an urban area. So we've got tons of information here that lead us to the conclusion that this pyramid, because of its ability to harmonize the field and in so doing eliminate perhaps the negative frequencies that are associated with virus proliferation and disease within the human body, this research shows us that we need to be looking at pyramids from a health and public health standpoint. Now, just as an immediate response, this is one thing I didn't have a chance to say on Richard Hoagland's program. I'm just going to show you this. It's got some other things in it as well, but one of the questions that Richard asked Sharry was, how can you get this information, her information, out to on specific frequencies to the people in China. Well, if you're in China and you see this, you're going to see that Hindu temples, Buddhist temples, Christian churches, even mosques and synagogues as well have this architecture in many cases. Any Tartarian architecture that has spires on it, these all may be sources of potential healing for people in China, as is the one in the lower right-hand corner. Now, I know this sounds silly, but we've done separate things on the dunce cap. This could be something that people could do very easily and quickly if you make the height to base ratio about 2.06%. That is the ratio that creates this this healing slant angle of 76.345 degrees. So I'll throw it out there as something, if people can get this to people in China, this may be of benefit. And finally, I'm going to make a pitch here. I am starting a Pyramid Science Foundation. I'm doing this with 2 other people, but I've been working on this for the last 9 months. We're just about ready to start up. This is the kind of research that I want to be able to do with the foundation. Go to pyramidsciencefoundation.org. I set this up just 10 days ago. We hope to be in business, being able to accept contributions here in the very near future. So I am looking for people, I'm looking for support for this type of research that can be so beneficial to mankind. So with that, I'll stop. I thank you for watching. As always, please tell your friends about Stargate Pyramids. Tell them now about the Pyramid Science Foundation, and also tell them about the health benefits of the Russian geometry pyramids and their potential part to play in solving the coronavirus problem. I thank you for watching, and you have a great day.